Let's talk a little bit more about the output channels, the so-called output channels. An output channel, it's something that gives Sextante the needed information to store an output. For example, in this case, I'm executing an algorithm called geometric properties of polygons. And as you can see, it generates this one vector layer called polygons. I have to tell Sextante where to put that layer. To do so, I can write in this text box, or better than that, just click on the button next to it and do whatever on this dialog. In this dialog, you're always going to see two tabs. The first one is called General, and the second one is called File. In the first one, you have two options: save to a temporary file or overwrite. When you click one of them, for example, overwrite, you see here that it types that on the text box. Or save to temporary file. Save to a temporary file, that means that Sextante is going to store that result in a file in a temporary folder, and once you close the program, it's going to delete it. So you can use this when you're generating intermediate results but not final results that you want to keep in your computer. Override is the second of these general options, and you're going to find that only on certain algorithms and only when you work with vector layers. When you select override, you don't have to select a file, but Sextante will find that file or find the output channel, the right output channel where to put the information. It's going to find it from the input layer. It's going to override a vector layer. For example, in this case, it makes sense. If you enter this polygon layer, what it's going to generate is the same polygon layer with the same geometries and the same attribute table, but with some extra attributes on that table that contain those geometric properties. So it makes sense to override that layer instead of generating a new one. As I said, you're not going to find that always, just on certain algorithms, and all those algorithms are algorithms that work with vector layer. If you want to enter a file name, you have two options. One is just use this dialog here in the second tab, or the other one is to directly type here the type path. If you type full path, it's going to use that full path. If you just type a file name, it will use the default folder for output. How can you set up that default folder? You can do that from the outside, from outside this dialog, and from the toolbox you press on this button here. This is the configuration, the settings dialog, and you go to folders, output folder. And this is the folder that Sextante is going to use to store that result in case you don't enter a full path name. When you enter a file here, a file name, the extension of the file name is which defines the format that is going to be used. For example, in this case, I'm generating a vector layer and I'm running Sextante in JavaScript, which supports different file names, different formats, like, for example, KML, like DXF, like shapefiles. So if I type something here called result.shp, that is going to generate a shapefile. If I type DXF, it's going to generate an AutoCAD file. So the extension is not just the extension itself, but it also defines the format that it's going to use, Sextante is going to use to generate that output. In case you type an extension that is not recognized or is not associated to a valid format, Sextante is going to use the default format. For example, in JavaScript, for vector layer, that's shapefile. So you will append that ASHP extension to the file name that you enter, and it will generate a shapefile.